Smoke fills the dank, stench-filled cantina. Sweat, blood and tears reminds you why these vaporator farmers gather here. Ithorians gather in the corner trying to convince a local farmer to buy their particular pods as they will yield the best results in the arid atmosphere of Tatooine. In the corner, a pig-like creature grunts its frustrations at the band for playing the wrong music. As you drink your Alderaanian sunset, a figure strides into the cantina, striking fear into the hearts of everybody who sees him. He's flanked by stormtroopers. It is Darth Vader. He walks up to you and says, "How's it, Oaks? What's going on, eh? It's all cool here. I mean, what have you seen, like some Jedi Oaks and stuff, eh? I'm looking for them." I hope to goodness that is not the type of voice that you would try and emulate Darth Vader with. Of course, it does beg the question, how do you handle guest appearances of famous characters in the genre that you happen to be running your game in? Hello, my name is Guy, and today we are looking at just that. Guest appearances. There's a lot of questions that come with adding in a guest character who has a long and established history into your game. Now, whether it's Drizzt, the drow assassin character for Dungeons and Dragons, whether it is Darth Vader from Star Wars, Captain Picard from Star Trek, or even Harry Potter himself, if you happen to be running a Harry Potter game, it doesn't really matter. How do your players react when you have a guest character suddenly appearing in the middle of their adventure? How do you react? These are important questions. We're going to unpack them in today's video. So we're going to look at why. Why would you want to include a character that is so iconic that they have almost defined the genre in which you are playing? Why do you want to do it? And there's more to that than just saying, well, 'cause they're cool. What are the motivations of the character once they enter into the scene with the players? And what should the players' motivations then be? What should their characters' motivations then be? And how do you make sure that you don't overshadow the player characters? It is their story, remember. They are not the extras in the film or the book or the play that the main, now iconic guest appearance character is in. They are not the extras, they are the heroes. And then, how do you deal with the inevitable metagame that comes with it? That's what we're going to be looking at, so stay with us. If my slides would flip over, it would have been a much better outro. So, guest appearances. Why? Why would we want to have Captain Picard suddenly walk up onto the bridge and start issuing orders to everybody? Why would we want to do that? Or Darth Vader, or the Emperor with his voice. Why would we want to have the Emperor wandering around fighting all the Jedi? All those kinds of things. There are a few reasons why we might want to include them, even if you don't necessarily want to yourself. If you are playing in an established fantasy or science fiction or even modern day genre, if you are playing in one of those games, we are going to expect that character to be there. As player characters, as players, we have the expectation of, well, if we're in Cabot Cove, we expect to see Jessica Fletcher, which means we're probably doomed to die. That cryptic reference to Murder, She Wrote an aside, but again, if you are playing in Star Wars, you expect to come across one of the famous Star Wars characters. If you are playing in Harry Potter, why shouldn't Professor McGonagall teach you about whatever it is that she's going to be teaching you about? How to walk with your nose up in the air, I think. Anyway, the idea is that we expect characters if we are playing in that kind of space. We expect them if they are part of the canon. If they're not part of canon, if they're fan-based, if they're fantasy that's been written by yourself and just kind of added in, those are just regular NPCs. They're not guest appearances. Guest appearances are very specific for characters that is collectively accepted as being part of that space. That means that if you're playing in a Marvel universe, you expect to see Marvel characters. They are canonically designed to be there. They are part of the canon. We know that they're there. Are the X-Men there? Well, that starts to raise questions about what is canon in terms of, are there crossovers? Are there universes combined? In theory they are. In practical reality they aren't, and there's a whole lot of reasons for it that have nothing to do with the actual universe itself. It's how these things evolved. If we expect to see Professor Xavier, we expect to see the rest of the X-Men running around, unless you're running a Deadpool movie, in which case you can make these quips about, gee, I bet we couldn't afford the copyright for the other X-Men characters. That's entirely true in that movie's case. The narrative demands, perhaps, that we encounter these characters. If you go to the Academy for the Gifted, you expect to meet some of the X-Men that are there. And if your player characters arrive at the Academy and they're met by Atom Manipulator Boy, they go, well, where's Professor X? Oh, he's away for a long time. You can't meet him. It doesn't ring true. It doesn't ring true. Welcome to the Death Star. Oh, is the Emperor around? Oh, no, he's on Coruscant. Welcome to Coruscant. Is the Emperor around? He just left for the Death Star. You just missed him. It's such a pity. So we have established, and the narrative drives us to including guest appearances if we are playing in that genre. So with that weight of now having to include them, do you now have to do the voices for them? No, you don't. You just have to describe them. Darth Vader, 7.5 foot tall, half man, half machine, strides in his black cape flowing, his almost samurai-like mask bearing and glaring down at you as his black-gloved hand reaches out towards you. His breathing apparatus kicks in every now and again with that strange wheezing, clinking sound that is so iconic of him. Just use your words. You don't have to use your voice, so bear that in mind. So we need to include these characters for a few reasons. Our players are going to want them to be there. So then how do we handle their motivations? Because they are bigger than the player characters. Why are they bigger than the player characters? Because they've had whole movies made about them, and books, and fan fiction, and. Whereas the player characters have not. They're in the process of having their stories created. So they are bigger than the PCs. What that means is that Jean-Luc Picard might sit down for a friendly little one-on-one with one of the PCs for a moment. But then they're going to move on and they're going to go and do their own thing. They're bigger than the PCs. They are dealing with much bigger things. If the PCs are so powerful that they can go toe-to-toe with Harry Potter in a one-on-one wand competition, then they themselves have enough status and stature that then suddenly Harry will say, actually, you can pop over for tea. But generally speaking, they're bigger than the PCs. So their motivations are going to be bigger. They're going to maybe use the PCs as, you go with Han Solo to place those depth charge things on the doors. Don't let him get shot. Jump in the way if a stormtrooper is accidentally going to hit him. If the stormtrooper is aiming for him, it's fine. You're okay. Don't worry about it. That is the kind of space that the PCs are going to be occupying in the mind of the guest character. However, it is not the space that the PCs should feel as if they are in. We're going to get to that a little bit later on. But they're also briefly involved. If Captain America arrived in the middle of this battle and you're playing a Mutants and Masterminds kind of game, and Captain America shows up and you're going, okay, so sure, interesting character journey that you've been on, Captain America. Are you with us for the next couple sessions? No, briefly involved. Look at how Gandalf was treated in The Hobbit. In The Hobbit, and this is the book, in the Hobbit book, Gandalf was briefly introduced. He was around here and there, but he wasn't overly involved. In The Lord of the Rings, he was obviously a lot more involved, but again, still just popping in and out as needed. Brief involvement, and quick resolution. If the player characters have to go and save a particular guest star, if they have to go and save E.T., It's a short interaction. E.T.'s grateful, raises a finger, touches a finger, and then disappears off home. There's no lingering, long-lasting space. Why do I say this? I say this because it's a guest appearance. It's not a, well, now they're part of the cast. Now they're part of the NPC background. You can do that if you are so inclined, but bear in mind that they're usually more powerful than the PCs themselves. At least initially. Once they're on the same power level, sure, then you can have them as NPCs in the background, and you can have these super powerful superheroes wandering around the corridors and passing Captain America and Iron Man and Green Lantern and whatever cross-genreing, cross-universing you want, and sort of them nodding at each other. That would be a great journey for your PCs to go on, especially if they started out as juniors where they were looking up to these individuals and now they're on the same footing or higher than them. That would be even better. So, bigger than the PCs, briefly involved, quick resolution in and out. Use them to highlight and to satisfy the expectations of the players, just to make it feel as if they are in that space rather than just overbearing and using them as a club to save the PCs all the time. And there's a reason for that. Metagaming. It is very difficult to not metagame. If your character is this young, bright-eyed little novice running around Hogwarts, and the next minute they bump into Dumbledore, that little bright-eyed kid is not going to remember rumors. The player is going to be sitting there going, oh, Dumbledore, okay, so this means we're set during that time period, and it means that this is the case, and it means that this has happened, but that hasn't happened. All of that is going to be in the players, because the players know more than the PCs would. If the PCs are sitting in a cantina and Darth Vader walks in, the PCs know that Vader is involved with the Empire in some way. He's got stormtroopers behind him, which is the local law enforcement, so he's a big shot. That's all they know. They don't know that he was almost set on fire with lava, he was on fire with lava, and that his girlfriend was messy, whatever. They don't know all of that. The players do. So, because the players know more, what you need to do is then use your guest appearance individuals to guide to a new space. Dumbledore's a good example. We know, spoiler alert, we know that Dumbledore dies at the end of, well, in the middle of the Harry Potter chain of stories. So if Dumbledore is introduced really early on to your PCs when they're still a young level, you need to take into account that your time frame is now set somewhere in the middle of that whole Harry Potter thing. It's set slightly earlier, so you've got fantastic beasts rumbling around. Or, if they're meeting Dumbledore and Dumbledore is old, but apparently has survived the Harry Potter thing, that's something new that you are adding to the story as part of your game. Maybe he didn't die, maybe he faked his death so that it would motivate everything to come to a head, and then he came back to life and went, hey, I'm not dead. Whatever. Use it as a guide to the new. So Picard is there as he was with Deep Space Nine to usher in the new TV series, and then he disappeared. And occasionally there were guest appearances from other Enterprise crew members on Deep Space Nine, the Star Trek show, but they were only brief there. They weren't there for very long. Don't overshadow the PCs. So if there is a quest and the PCs are struggling, they need to go and get X or Y. And in walks this famous wizard, Mordenkainen or Bigby or whomever it might be. They walk in. If the PCs go to them and say, hey, I need your help, please help us solve this. Of course they could. With the click of their finger, they could solve that problem. But they're not going to. They're going to say, well, I would, but I'm very busy. Remember, they have bigger issues than the PCs. I'm here, take this. And they give them something. They introduce them to something new. Or they say, oh, I've got this assistant. His name is Brian. He'll help you. Brian, go with them and sort it out. He knows what to do. Brian doesn't have a clue. The PCs are going to have to solve it anyway, but they haven't been overshadowed. They haven't been excluded because now the superpower is involved and they have more power than they know what to do with. It's also, don't underpower the characters now. Suddenly, Gandalf is no longer able to summon eagles because that's too powerful for your game. Or whatever the situation, suddenly Cyclops' beam that he shoots out of his eyes, it doesn't go very far. Now it doesn't even melt metal. Wolverine can't regenerate. Superman is not really strong. He's just kind of strong, but can be defeated by a PC who's only got a limited strength base. Don't underpower them to try and make them fit with the PCs either. Keep them at that elevated status, but don't let them overshadow. Use them as introductions to new or different experiences that are your own creation. So you're bringing in the established, but you're now taking the players on a new journey in a different direction. They are absolutely going to adore it. They're going to love it because they're in a space that they identify and that they know and that they love, but they're discovering new things which they didn't know before. So guest appearances are a lot of fun to add to your campaign. They can be really powerful if you utilize them as seasoning, as flavoring, as reasons for wanting to be in your game world. Then they are incredibly powerful spaces to be in. I thoroughly recommend using them. If you are playing in an established genre, it does bring your campaign to life. Until next time, let me know below, have you ever done a guest appearance in terms of bringing some character from the genre that you are playing in into your game? And if so, what was the experience like? What did the players do when suddenly The Rock walked into their WWE wrestling arena? And yes, that is how long ago it has been since I watched wrestling. Anyway, until next time, I wish you and yours the very happiest of gaming. So then he says, like, it's like just totally like ridiculous, and I just have to like go and kill my own son. I mean, like, what's up with that, eh? So I was like, no ways am I ever going to subscribe to that idea. I can't subscribe to it. I can't even bring myself to even go anywhere near that as an option. I'm sorry, Pally, but it's just not going to happen. It's just not going to happen. So do you know what he did? He rang a bloody bell and he brings in this bloke, Boba Fett or something like that. And he says, go find this Luke brat and just shoot him, eh? Because I can't do it. I can't kill my own boy. Well, anyway, it is what it is. And so I just rang that bell again and I said, listen here, Mr. Fett, I'm very appreciative of your work, but you can now go away because I'm going to do it myself, because I'm not going to let anybody else do my own dirty work. You know what I'm saying? I mean, it's a dedication to the job that I've got. That's really what counts, eh?